What's up, y'all?
What's up?
My name is Josh, and this is
I'm Bree.
Yes, and we are here to talk to you guys about some stuff, okay?
Yes.
So this is a podcast where our heart is to just share some of the insights that we've learned. Insights, not advice.
Nope.
We just want to share some of the insights that we learned, just to kind of spark conversation and see where you're at. So whether you are single, if you're in a relationship, if you're thinking about marriage, if you've been married for a long time, we think that these conversations are kind of for you. And we're just going to be kind of going through the lens of where we're at in our lives. So we have recently been married, and we feel like we've learned some different insights along the way as far as relationship and just how we engage in relationship. And we just want to have some conversations around that. So today, what are we talking about?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Today, yes, we're talking about how our family upbringings affect our marriage.
Yes.
Yes.
How our family upbringings affect our marriage. And I think we have three ways that we've kind of quantified that for us. What are those?
Yes. I'm talking about cultural differences. Talking about problem solving. How do we solve problems? And then the third one is working together versus working independently.
Yep. So I think, So great thing. So culture differences. When do we kind of address the problem in our problem solving process? When does a problem actually become a problem?
Yes.
And what to do? What was the third one?
The third one was how do we work independently versus working together?
How do we work independently versus together? Cool.
Yes.
So that is kind of the format for today. So we're gonna kind of hop into those three different questions, those sub questions, and we're gonna try to answer that today. Cool.
Cool.
Let's do it. So I think for me, I remember growing up. So growing up for me, I am the youngest of three children. I have two sisters.
Yes.
Both of my parents are from Haiti. So they were born in Haiti. I think my dad was born in Haiti, but lived in the Bahamas for a little bit. And so yes, born to two Haitian parents. So I can remember just growing up, just how the wives kind of catered to the husbands, if you would, and not in a chauvinistic, demeaning way that I feel like some people may interpret now. But I think that's just how they showed their care and how they showed their love, and that's just kind of what it was. So when I say that, what I mean with that look like practically, I think just like the expectation was always like the wives were cooking or cleaning or whatever the case may be. You see, when I say it, look at Bree's face.
Cooking every day.
It wasn't within, like, growing up, it never was like a negative thing. So I think it was actually pretty interesting when Bree and I were talking about when we were talking about getting engaged. Well, yeah, when we were engaged and we were talking about like going through roles as far as like, are we going to cook, or are we cooking every day? Are we cooking one thing at the beginning of the week and just leaving it for the week? And I remember just being like, yeah, no, like I remember my mom used to cook every day. And what did you say?
I said, well, I love your mother. I am not cooking every day. I like leftovers. And what did you say to that?
I don't eat yesterday food.
I do. I eat it with pride and joy. So I said, we gotta learn how to eat leftovers.
Yeah, so here we are. We came to this impasse, right? Where it's just like she's done things a certain type of way. I've seen things done a certain type of way. And I think even so, I think it was about the food and whether it's cooked every day or not cooked every day. I think it was more so I seen I seen my mom do that.
Yeah.
And for me, that was like an act of service or act of love. So it was just like a way that one shows love is just through the act of service of cooking. And obviously it doesn't have to be within that scale, but that was just the picture that I had in my head. I'm not saying that's the right picture. That's the picture that I had in my head. Right. And we just had to figure out how to navigate that. So what did we kind of do to kind of rectify that?
Well, first off, before we go into that, I also like to say it's not like I didn't have meals every day. Like my granny cooked pretty much every day. Some days we like went back and forth because I'm like, oh no, like I'm fine. I don't have to eat this every day. So it's not like I did not grow up having meals being cooked every day.
You just didn't want to cook meals every day.
I did not want to cook meals every day, and I've learned in my time living by myself prior to getting married that I don't have to cook every day. I can eat the same stuff, make it on Sunday, have it up to Wednesday, and be content. So anyway, so that was my 2 cents. But how did we fix or negotiate in terms of what we would do in our household is that, yes, I think I cook. Well, first off, we have themes about what we're going to eat, but I cook probably like three or four times a week. And then Josh will cook or buy on Fridays. And
why you say cook or buy like that, like shade, because I seen your eyes, but then secondly, as if you don't cook and buy sometimes too.
Well, first off,
okay,
when I say cook and buy, I mean like
let's not be shady.
It's like make a meal. Like if I buy the chicken, it's not like it's already seasoned and cooked. I season it and then I cook it. And no, I do buy stuff, but I buy it in its former stage and make it it whole.
You do a great job. You do a great job. I'm not being sarcastic. No, you really do a good job. I think
he makes great rice.
I think we figured out our rhythm for that, but I think
we're still figuring it out.
Yeah, and we're kind of still figuring that out. But I think the cultural differences coming in, so it's just like, oh yeah, Bree, you would think like, okay, Bree's black, Josh is black.
Yeah.
I'm Haitian, so that like there's things that she's seen that's been different, and it's not even just from that aspect. I think even just like celebrating holidays and different things like that. I think for probably not so much a Haitian thing, but probably more my family thing, where it's just like, first off, I love my upbringing. I love my mom. I love my dad. I love everyone.
Yes, we love them.
I think they've done a really good job. But I think for me, like even like holidays and things like that, I was just used to. My mom was in a position where it's just like she had to work a lot. So on holidays or like even sometimes on Christmas, whereas I remember times where she had to work. So to me, Christmas was just like, okay, cool, like another day. Like it wasn't like this big ordeal and it was normal. I was fine. Like I wasn't sad. I wasn't upset. It just was what it was.
Well, yes, and I just think for me it's just been interesting because like my grandma kind of raised me after, my mom passed away, but also like my godmom and her family, and then like my uncle and my aunt and my cousins. So we're used to celebrating holidays. So even like 4th of July or Christmas or anything like that, like we over each other's houses eating up all the food. I don't particularly bring any food that I make. I just eat it. I'm trying to be better, since I'm working on my cooking skills. But yeah, no, like I think if we don't, like if it's Christmas and I haven't been to anybody's house, then I feel like, I just kind of wasted my day. So it's not common for me not to like celebrate with family or friends.
Yeah.
Around like holiday time.
Yeah.
Specifically the big holidays and. So
I think
even birthdays.
In relationship, in friendships, we see this in friendships. We see this. You may have a friend that's of another religion of you, or another faith, or whatever the case may be, or cultural differences.
Yeah.
The whole Black Lives Matter and movement, and not so much the movement, but just the whole thing, the racial justice and injustice, and there's differences all around. We see those differences all around, and I think that was just one of the things that we had to navigate within our relationship. And I think two things that I think that we just kind of practically saw that was helpful. One being just being aware of the cultural differences and that they exist, right? Just being aware that they exist. Like Bree knew, yes, Josh is black, but Josh is Haitian. So there are a set of ways that he kind of grew up in seeing and doing. And that is a reality. And that's something that we're going to have to address.
Right. And also I was telling him this a while back, but even though I'm not Haitian, I grew up around people who were. So I was familiar with some culture differences, but I wasn't familiar with like every part that I assumed I knew. So that's something.
Yeah. So the two application points that we've kind of learned from the whole cultural differences things is the first thing is just being aware that these dynamics exist within our friendships, within our relationships, within our marriages, just being aware that that dynamic exists. And I would say the second thing is being okay with just trying to celebrate those things, right? Being able to embrace those things and kind of walk into that. All right. So today, like we said, we are talking about how our family upbringing has affected our marriage. So the second thing we want to talk about is...
Yes, the second thing we want to talk about is doing things together versus independently. For me, growing up in my family, I was surrounded by a lot of strong females.
Independent
women.
Yes, Brilla.
My mom was super independent, and though she definitely still got help from family, from what I saw, from what I remember, she got things done. And when she kind of passed away, my granny got things done, but she also had help from my uncle, but my godmom and her mom, and like my aunts and my cousins. So I was just super used to this reality that doing things myself was okay.
Yeah.
And and I don't think Josh was used to that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. No, I think for me, growing up with both of my parents, I think they showed, I think they did a great job in working together. I think my mom's at times could be independent also. But I think for the most part, I grew to value doing things together versus doing things separately. And I think that was probably some of the tension we felt when coming into relationship.
Yes, when coming into relationship with the expectation that I won't say fall in line, that's a bad thing to say. I would be more comfortable with trying to ask for help and doing things together versus doing them apart.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think there were circumstances where, or situations where it's just like I had an expectation of, hey, having a conversation before this or navigate or just talking through something, and you knowing that you could have just done it yourself, just kind of leaned into and just doing it. And I think in the beginning, I was just like, I didn't know
he was mad
how to navigate that. I was just like, what?
In his feelings.
I was in my feelings because I was just like, if I'm in to be frank, I was just like, if I'm in a relationship, doing a relationship together, then I'm here to do things together. If I wanted to do things by myself, I would just stay by myself.
Yes.
That was just kind of my thing. So, but again, I think there are things that we realize within the context of that also. I think there's things that we kind of learned from that. And what would you say the first thing that we kind of learned from?
I think, and I'm still learning this, just want to put that out there, by the way. But the reality that we just have to communicate with the other person when we want to do something alone and when we want to do something together.
Yeah.
And I think I'm definitely still learning how to do that because I feel like I can do it all. So.
Yeah. No, I think
Yes.
and I think that's the same thing that I've learned is I have to communicate. It's my job to communicate those things that are important to me, those things that must get done together, right? Not everything needs to be done together, but what are the things that like the non-negotiables, like these things have to. These other things I would like for it, but I understand like, hey, that's your personality.
Yeah.
That's your dynamic. So it's like, I want to kind of give you room to be you and navigate. But there are some core things here where it's just like, these things must kind of these things must kind of go together. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah. What would you say one of those things are? I'm just going off the cuff.
You mean in terms of doing together versus separately?
Mm-hmm. It's a good question, right?
Yes. I think doing things together versus separately. I'd probably say like financial stuff. I'd probably say like finances, definitely learning how to do that together versus separately, because I think...
Say more.
Yes. I think I've leaned into, and we were just having a conversation about this yesterday or 2 days ago. I've always worked. I've never not worked. And so having my own money to spend and not having to worry about how much I spend, not to say like I'm a huge spender, I think that has been like hard for me to kind of come into marriage and be like, oh, like, can I have this or can I have this for this? But also realizing like if I just communicate about that and not feel like I have to ask Josh for this and that, I think, I'm still learning through that, but that's kind of financially doing that together versus me doing it separately and spending all the money and then we don't have any place to stay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think what we've been navigating is trying to figure out it's our money now. And I think that that's like a different framework. So it's just like, it's even the having to ask, like we don't have to, it's not that we have to ask. It's just like, hey, if someone's doing the budget this month, then what are our priorities? Have we agreed on what we're kind of doing and kind of navigating that? So I think that's been interesting to kind of to navigate and feel that out. But I think the key to getting through that when working with someone independent, be it, I think these dynamics happen, like I said, in relationship. I think these dynamics happen. I feel like I can be independent and work at times. So it's just like, how do you navigate with somebody that's me. I need autonomy. I need to be able, the space to be able to do what I do. So it's like, how do you navigate with them? It's just like, as a leader, you have to kind of communicate those things that have to be done together and then give them the space to kind of do what they want to do. Cool. So we've talked about our cultural differences. We talked about working independently versus working together. Mm-hmm. And the last thing we want to kind of talk about is when to address the problem. When to address the problem.
Yes.
So I'm going to share a quick story. So I remember, I think just kind of growing up and just kind of having different friends that were in relationships and kind of just navigating and watching them a little bit. Here is the issue that I always saw creep up. It was always some version of something happened. They didn't have a conversation. It was something little. And then they just kind of kept moving on. I would either talk I would talk to my friends who are guys and just be like, and they would tell me about it. And then they would kind of just move on from it. And then every time it was just like down the line, there would be like this one big blow up. And I would always, so to me, what I saw from that was just like, okay, if you're not addressing problems along the way, they're going to build up to become something. So I think in a healthy way and in an unhealthy way, sometimes I leaned into always communicating. Always trying to communicate on whatever the little fox may be that comes in. It's just like, I want to have that conversation. If something comes up and you feel bothered or you feel whatever, I'm like, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's solve it. Let's talk about it. Bree, I think you've had a little bit of a different experience when it comes to that.
Yes, my different experience. So first off, I'm an only child. Let me throw that out there. And just the reality that I was just always, when I wasn't with family or when I wasn't with my cousins and things, I was by myself and I was super content with being by myself and being able to write down my thoughts and then just be okay. Or like still having conversations with some family members, but still being okay But for the most part, I just kept it to myself. I journaled it, probably prayed about it, and then I thought I was okay. So yeah, even when it came to friendships, especially, like, obviously, like, sometimes if I was close with them, I would address it in a jokingly way, like if there was conflict.
I'm sorry.
So yeah, address it in a joking way when I was a little bit younger. And then when I got older, like, I was just I feel like I can just hold things longer. But I also have a tendency to hold things, and then when I explode, it'd be bad. It'd be bad, but then I just be like, oh, I feel better now. And then I'll just be okay till the next thing happens. So I don't think anything of it until I feel like it's just, like, definitely affecting me where I just can't sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we came to a point where it's just like, I had to realize this. Her silence wasn't disrespect. And I think for me, if you didn't want to address something or talk about something, to me, I felt disrespected because I'm just like,
Yes.
I don't want to have this conversation down the line when we're blowing up on each other. Like, I'm trying to have this conversation now, and not talking about it now, to me, I don't know, it's just something deep in my soul just felt like it was disrespectful. But I had to realize, like, no, you know what? Her silence it's not disrespect. It's sometimes it may bother me, but it may not be bothering her as much. Or like, it may not be, what may be an issue for me may be a non-issue for her. And I think that's something that I had to kind of navigate and learn.
Yeah, no, I think that was the main issue. Is that it was the main issue. That was the main issue that, I obviously was content with keeping stuff to myself until I felt like it needed to be addressed. And you were just like, let's talk about everything. And I was like, I don't think that's a problem. And you were like, but it is a problem. And I was like, are you for real? Because I don't think it's a problem.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then also knowing with a grain of yes, that's true. Also knowing that you do tend to hold things and then blow up.
Let me say this. Okay. When people say blow up, every time it don't be major. Sometimes I just have, like, I don't feel like I yell. I don't feel like, well,
no, you don't.
I have, like, yelled by myself. Like,
you haven't
yelled. Like, I've never yelled at Joshua. Okay? Never yelled at him. You heard that on the record? When blow up, sometimes it's just me just being super frustrated.
Correct. I think that's fair. And I think, to your credit, yes, I've never actually seen you blow up, but my fear continues to always be like, you're suppressing it and it may come out down the line.
Yes, but while we're on this subject, I think that is a good thing to say, but also I feel like I have gotten way better than, like, when I was younger, or even, like, the last few years, in terms of, like, being like, okay, like, but, like, you said this and that bothered me, or, like, I felt I could probably, like, be over it, but, like, when it happened, like, this bothered me this way.
Correct. Nope. Yeah. I think that's fair.
Yes. So in terms of just talking to all about just problem solving and how that worked, you realized that my silence wasn't disrespectful. Mm-hmm. And I realized that Josh can ask a lot of questions to try to get me to, like, just express how I'm feeling. But I realized that in terms of him always asking me questions, that it tends to be helpful and not hurtful. So I have to be reminded that, like, even though I might be a little frustrated that he asks me so much, he has a right to know how I'm feeling.
I ask you because I love you. Mm-hmm. I be trying to be helpful.
Now, some of the questions, y'all, they just be repetitive.
I'm trying to be helpful.
He trying to be helpful, not hurtful. That's what we learning.
So yeah, so to kind of sum up all that we've kind of talked about today, yeah. I think our family, and growing up in the families that we grew up in has definitely impacted our relationship and affected our relationship today. Would you say that's fair?
Yes, I would say that is fair. I also want to throw this out there that I did have a few great men in my life that also helped bring me up in a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think all in all, I think our families did a great job in raising us. I think they're just personalities that we were molded by,
Yes.
that now make us into who we are now.
Yeah.
And I think if we can learn to navigate that, that becomes helpful. I think in relationship, I think in friendships, I think in all of that, all of the above, I think that becomes helpful. So, cultural differences. When do we address the problem? Being independent versus working together.
And you can be independent.
You can. And I love independence. It's time for independence. But yes, thank you guys so much for watching this week's episode. Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.